We start today's episode on September the 1st in the year 2027. And with September come the call-ups, of course, getting our roster up to 28 players. I have done that. And as you can see, I ultimately decided not to call up Jose Barreto. Of course, he's having a pretty good year, but even though his ratings may suggest he might be ready, I'm going to be a little bit patient with him. You know, this isn't a team that's pushing for a wild card spot or anything this year. And we've seen, you know, with Chase Dollander at times, although he's had a solid season overall at the very least, that these high 70s, you know, low 80s overall pitchers can still struggle. And in the end, I'm much more invested in how Jose Barreto performs for us long term than I am getting him on the roster this year. So we will not be calling up Jose Barreto. The other big time prospect that was, you know, in the running was Clemente Herrera. Ultimately just decided not to call him up either. And the reason is, despite the fact that, you know, he's 78 overall and that he's playing well in AAA, he has not reached 100 at-bats there yet. So want a little bit bigger of a sample size. I think both of these guys could easily be spring training invites for us, just not going to be people that we call up. So ultimately what I decided, we will have somebody make their MLB debut. It'll be Yohan Blanco. He was playing really well in AAA, under a 3 ERA. And even though that home runs per 9 is troublesome to say the least, I think the fact that he's C potential, I'm not quite as invested in his long-term impact with the team. So we're going to give him a shot. And then we had one player on the injured list. As you can see, it's not Herrera because he's on the minor league teams. I can't remember who exactly it is. I remember it was a position player. So for the other spots, we'll bring up Ryan Bliss back up onto the major league roster for him, as well as Benny Montgomery for it's Logan Cerny, who's on the injured list, I remember now. So to play center field for us. So while we do have one player that will technically make his MLB debut today, I don't think it's exciting enough to need to watch it necessarily with Yohan Blanco. So instead, I was planning, you know, what we should do for today's episode, and ultimately I think what's for the best is we actually get to the off season today in this episode. I was trying to figure out what good storyline we could showcase in this episode, and ultimately I think I'm ready to be done with the season and get to the next one. We've had a few episodes here in this season. We've seen the Diamondbacks, we've seen the Dodgers, and we're playing a lot of these games against them. And I don't want to make an episode just for the sake of making an episode. So we're going to get to the off season today. Maybe one episode sooner than I was planning, but there you go. Let's simulate through the month of September. We've reached the end of the minor league season, so let's take a look at some final stats for some of our higher end prospects. Jose Barreto up to an 80 overall now. Very even across the board, +3 and everything. Surprised nothing bigger than that. And then of course the -1 hits per 9. Sometimes these ratings will adjust slightly at the end of the season, despite the fact that they're not playing very much. Just one thing with the show is they like to give, you know, updates throughout the month, but then at the beginning of the month they'll give an update to the ratings as well. So these might not be the final, you know, upgrades for Barreto. Hopefully we can see him get a +1 to his hits per 9 so he doesn't fall there this year. But for his stats, it'll actually be better because we can see more advanced stats if we do it here. So let's do player stats for the minor league, and let's do the pitching. So Jose Barreto, 3.29 ERA with a 1.21 whip here, 20 quality starts on the board. No complete game shutouts for him, but a 4.8 WAR, K per nine is okay. You know, that's not the strength of his game. Under a 2 walks per nine is really good. Home runs per nine in a solid spot. 304 fifth, which is a really good season. So he's somebody, decided not to call him up today, but I think we give him a spring training invite. And if he excels there, he can start next season on the Major League squad. If not, we can call him up at some point. It was very much so on the borderline for me. And I think if we can give him a little bit of a free tryout in spring training, that would be to our benefit. Next up, you have Neil Dorsey, who started 11 games at the AAA level for us with a 2.82 ERA and a 105 whip. Excellent pitching. Definitely a better pitching season than I expected out of Neil in his first season, particularly at AAA. I mean, he is honestly a pretty good pitching prospect with, you know, the hits per nine and the walks per nine being both high. I shouldn't be surprised that he sims well with those two being high, if we're being honest. And then as a position player, 332 average, OPS over 1,000 in his 214 at-bats. This guy, not going to take long here, much longer to develop. Ends up lowering his power versus lefties, unfortunately, down into the 60s. But contact and power versus righties are both at 79. You'll love to see it. Clutch getting up to 70. So, you know, clutch isn't something that we have a lot of players good at. And so he's going to be one of the better clutch hitters in the lineup, especially with, you know, Joey Meneses maybe not coming back on the team next year. So probably not going to give him a spring training invite still. Just want a little bit more of these pitching weaknesses to be a little higher. We can get K per nines up a bit and then home runs per nine at least into the 50s for sure. I think before we ask him to play at the major league level, that will help him have a better opportunity for success, I think. But some really, really good development for Neil Dorsey. Definitely on the right track to be a centerpiece in the lineup of our future alongside Rafael Murillo and Ethan Salas. James Ungerer here. Of course, he had a bad start to the AAA year with the Royals affiliate before we traded for him. Ended up getting his ERA below 4, so he had some good starts with our team. 5 quality starts on the board for him. He had a negative WAR overall. Again, a lot of that was before we traded for him. Strikeouts per 9 wasn't very good for him. Walks per 9 either. Home runs per 9. Just not a great season at AAA, but we know what he was doing at the AA level. He was absolutely dominating. Up to a 74 overall, plus 5 hits per 9. His home runs per 9 didn't go up, but they didn't really need to. So they're already in the 70s. So maybe gave up a few more home runs than you like, despite that being such a high number. But still hoping for great things for Unger. That pitcher clutch is going to be really, I mean, all puns intended, clutch for this team. Again, just both batting and pitching clutch is just something we don't have a lot of great players in, and so having one in James Unger is certainly good. Control almost into the 50s. Just want some more of these per 9s, maybe into the 60s, and then I think he'll be ready. So probably one more year, at least into the high 50s. I think next year we could be looking at a call for him as well. Reyes has always simulated excellently because those walks per 9 are so elite. Hits per 9, another great season. So he's had some serious development in his hits per 9 through his first 2 years because those came in very poor. But he's getting better. Still 36 makes him probably multiple years away from coming into the majors, despite the fact that he sims so well. Just, I need that. I mean, can we at least get high 40s maybe before we call him up? Would be my ask here. Cole McCracken here. He played 49 innings for us at the AAA level this year. He had 42 saves to 8 blown saves, so 80% save rate, which, 42 saves is really good. 2.19 ERA, 107 WHIP. Let's actually look here so we can see strikeouts per nine, pretty good. Walks per nine below 3. That's where you really need it. Home runs per nine was excellent. 2.74 FIP. This guy is probably ready for a spring training invite as well. We're starting to get some bullpen arms, some of our young players into the major leagues. Maybe we wait a little bit longer. Kind of just depends on maybe what we have in the offseason, how many relievers we retain on the big league roster, but I think he's at least ready. And then that's pretty much it for our AAA pitching. Let's go to the AA pitching. We'll do pitching and then we'll do position players after that. Anton Hernandez, 3.76 ERA, 1.36 WHIP for him. 19 quality starts. No complete game shutouts, unfortunately, despite his excellent stamina. Just needs to, I think, be a little bit better of a pitcher before we start talking about that. 7 strikeouts per nine is okay. 2.14 walks per nine is where you need at least below 1 home runs per nine. I think we'll take that. 3.49 FIP. Coming along, he, unlike Herb Reyes, just hasn't been able to develop the hits per nine as quickly on a per season basis. If he could, get a massive season in hits per nine next year, I think that would really boost his timeline for a call-up. Johnny Brennan, excellent season this year. Should be in AAA next year for sure. Only thing with him is that stamina. 67 isn't awful either. This is just a guy you're probably never gonna trust to go more than 5 innings unless he's just getting like a ton of outs in 1 or 2 pitches. But Chris Benoit, after 62, did have an injury here, but +6 clutch is great. He really desperately needed a big year in that, and he got it. So good pitching for him. He got a 1.8 WAR, strikeouts per nine low, walks per nine a little high, but he is in the low 60s. So we'll continue to see some development from him. We got Dusty Coleman, who was our closer for us. His stamina went down, his home runs per nine went down by 4, so that certainly must have been a problem for him. 41 saves to 6 blown saves is pretty solid for sure. I think we'll just continue to let him develop a little bit longer for us. And that's the pitching. So let's go to position players now. This time we'll start in AA. And Carlos Cortez ends the year 2.65 average with not very good contact versus right, unfortunately, but contact versus left going up by 6. Certainly going to be somebody that we could have hit versus lefties at times for us in the lineup, I think, eventually, and we'll see in the future if his contact versus righties comes up. Still not going to be much of a power hitter at all. More of a backup outfielder. Future projection for him. Somebody that we hope to be a future starter, and somebody that I think will be back at AAA next year is Brian Doe. It was a good suggestion in the comments to have him take 1 more year at AA, despite the fact that his ratings are so high, just because his weaknesses need some serious work. I think now that they're kind of more in the high 40s, that might be able to work in AAA. So we'll have him play AAA next year. He's going to be a guy whose overall is going to be pretty high by the time he comes into the league, and that's just what comes with the territory of his rating spread. And not much in the way of long-term position players that ended the year at AA. So let's go back to AAA here, where we have Neil Dorsey, who we've already talked about, but we'll just talk about once more. Excellent player hitting wise all year. I mean, we knew he would be, but just even exceeded expectations for us. I think nearly 300 isolated power is really good. So if he was just a hitter, absolutely would be on the major league squad already. Gonna give him a little bit more time to develop the pitching though before we call him up. And then we have Clemente Herrera, who ends with a 3.26 average ended the season with 132 at-bats in AAA. So somebody I think that's going to get a spring training invite at 79 overall and 22 years old. He's going to have a shot to come up and play for the big league squad next season with a strong spring. Now it's time to go ahead and finish off the simulation for the regular season. And the regular season is over here in Colorado. 70-92 is the final record, a 13-win improvement over last year. You're starting to see the team come together. Of course, doesn't end up being a year that is competitive towards the playoff by the end. We stuck around 500 for a while. Just as the time in the season went along, it became clear that we weren't quite ready yet. But as you can see, you know, the first true year of the franchise was 2025. So from 41 to 59 to 72, steady gains year by year, and I imagine we'll see it once again next season. Let's take a look at the standings now, see where our lottery position will be. We end up tied with the Marlins, but I think we're ahead of them on a tiebreaker. So we'll have 4 teams with better lottery odds than us in the National League, and then only 1 team. So we're actually just projected to pick outside the top 5. I thought, you know, around the time of the draft that this would be the last time we pick anywhere near the top 5. But with a little bit of lottery luck, we could even sneak back into 1 more pick in the top 5 for us in this franchise. But I got to imagine this is the last year. If we continue to increase at the rate we are, you know, 10 plus wins a season, next year we'll be flirting with 500 at the least. I think that's kind of my expectation. You know, going into 2028, I do want to at least start to see this team being competitive. You know, I don't expect a World Series or anything next year, but if we can at least through September still be competing for a playoff spot, that would be, I think, a win for us. So let's go through now the final stats for our major league team. Rafael Murillo, 325 average, 32 home runs, so actually less home runs and RBIs than last year. Did have a few less at-bats with a minor injury, but absolutely increased that power. OPS much better for him, still showing, you know, similar power, just on a much higher average. WAR does go down for him this year. A lot of that is fielding percentage, going down a full 2 points. Was not as good of a fielding year for Murillo. He's not going to be, you know, a stud fielder as a shortstop. That's just not his game. Power versus righties goes down, unfortunately, this year. Everything else going up quite well in his hitting ratings, though. At 82 power versus right is still plenty good to hit a lot of homers. Hopefully we can get that back up next year. Into the 90s overall this year at the age of 20. A true verified superstar in Rafael Murillo. Chase Dollander ends up in the low 4s with a 1.43 whip. That's not bad, you know, for a rookie season. Certainly with his overall, you'd hope for a little bit more, but we're playing with the Rockies. We got to take what we can get. Had 1 complete game this year, which you love to see. K per 9 at least is in the 8s, which is pretty solid. Below 3 walks per 9. A thing with him, as it always has been, over 1 home run per 9. You want a little bit better than that. His FIP is 3.8, which is pretty solid for sure. 9 and 10 if you care about, you know, wins as a pitcher. But I'm not somebody who cares too much about them. Ethan Salas here ends up settling into a nice little 280 average. OPS up about, what is that, 40 points from last year, roundabout. I think you'll take that. His WAR is up this season as well. Let's see, his isolated power is pretty similar. At bats per home run, he actually ended up being a slightly worse power. Just his power was not quite the same when he came back from injury, and that's kind of the story. If he hadn't gotten injured, I'm truly wondering what kind of season we could have got from Salas, because he was on an absolute heater for the injury. Got injured the game before we were going to player lock him because he was playing so well, and came back, still played solidly enough, ending the year with 280 and an OPS in the 800s. I'm not going to complain about that at all. Was definitely expecting more than 16 home runs, even with the lesser at-bats this year. Just, again, didn't quite have the power. Still, his power is going up, though. Everything's going up except for his stealing and his base running aggression, because this team can't steal to save their lives. But all the fielding is, right around the same ratings. They always come up a solid 3 or 4 every year. So before too long, this guy will be an elite fielding catcher, and the offense is coming along as well. Kopech, going to be a free agent at the end of this season. Don't know if we're bringing him back with these kind of ratings, although +7 walks per 9. And another player with excellent clutch. Might bring him back for at least 1 more year while we're letting a lot of players develop. Just give that a chance with his ratings coming up so much. Kyle Brown here ends the year hitting 250, 686 OPS. You certainly want better than that in the long term for him. His ratings are coming up, though. Another guy with just excellent clutch, so you want to keep him in the lineup for that reason. Gotta see more from him next year, though, I think, as a batter, because he doesn't offer you much as a fielder. He's not, atrocious, but that's certainly not a strength of his. Need a better bat if you're going to take that defense. Sterling Thompson ends +6 contact versus righties. Definitely, I know I've said this a couple times, but that average came up as the season went along, which he absolutely needed it to. Gets that OPS at least above 700, which is all right. I kind of, 750 is what you want to shoot for a solid offensive player. Or WAR comes up, and definitely one of the better defenders in our lineup. So if you can get at least solid offense with a good defender in Sterling Thompson, you'll probably take that for as long. That's going to be somebody that's going to be hard to upgrade, I'll say. If there's a stud player that we can get in a draft, then yeah, you could see him being replaced. But if he can offer, average to slightly above average offense with great defense, he's probably going to be sticking on the team for a while. We got Cerny, who was the star of last episode with 2 home runs. Ends up with +8 power versus lefties this year, which is fun for him. Omar Figueroa ends the year on a cold streak, unfortunately. And if he wins Rookie of the Year, I plan on making his potential 80, which we'll find out just in a couple of minutes if he does. Really solid first year from him for sure, though. +12 power versus lefties, and contact versus left, not looking great, -8. But if we put his potential up to 80 next year, he'll be able to maybe earn some of it back. And then Devin Smeltzer ends up actually rebounding a bit. He was having a pretty bad year, but once again, very consistent numbers. If you look at the whips, they're all between 0.05 of each other his 3 years. Somebody that's just a solid guy to have in the lineup while we wait for our guys to develop. Zach Veen really needs to be better. We need him to be better if he wants to stick on the team long term. OPS below 700. Not much of a fielder, so if you're gonna not provide us with offense, gonna need to find a replacement for him at some point. So hoping for a better year next year from him. Jelly, at one point was looking like he was going to be really solid for us, just didn't end up having the best year for us at all. That 1.78 home runs per 9. Big time problem for Jelly the Giant, but again, might get one more chance next year just because of the fact that we're not calling up a lot of our pitchers quite yet. We need one more year probably of stopgap before we start bringing up a bunch of our own. Mari Lozano, pretty dang good in his first stint at the major leagues, under a 3 ERA, 1.31 whip. I think you'll take that. Home runs per 9 a problem once more, but walks per 9 are good. Ks per 9 are solid with him. Jeff Ramirez, whips very similar, just the ERA is not nearly as good as we got with Lozano. Strikeouts per 9 up near 9 is good. Walks per 9 a little high. Home runs per 9 a bit high as well for him. But he did get +6 home runs per 9 in his ratings development, which is pretty big. He needed that for sure. Strikeouts into the 80s. You like Ramirez long term still, I think. And that's pretty much it in terms of the important guys here in the franchise. Takes a while to go through all these guys at the end of the year, but you know, we need to do it because I want you guys to be up to date with how everyone along the team is developing. Now let's take a look at how people are developing around the league. Awards, it looks like we won at least one here, and it is NL Rookie of the Year, Omar Figueroa. So he will earn himself 80 potential for winning Rookie of the Year this season. Might even up, you know, he went down 8 power versus lefties. I don't know if he would have gone down quite that far if it wasn't for his potential. So we might bump it to like, maybe he lost 3, because he still could have absolutely lost it. But I don't think he would have lost 8 if it wasn't for that nerf potential. So I'll up his contact versus lefties to where he only lost 3 this year. That'll be the only changes I make. Your MVP is Fernando Tatis. So a division rival winning MVP, despite the fact that he's seeing a lot of stuff go down, just being the nature of him being a 99 overall player. Hit 40 homers, drew in 130 runs nearly. Had a 5.75 slugging for a 921 OPS. We know he's an excellent fielder, no errors at all. Got to a 7 WAR, so very great season for Fernando Tatis. Probably my personal favorite player in baseball. And then Gunnar Henderson winning it over in the AL with his teammate in second place. 50 home runs, and he only got a +1 total to his power. I mean, I get his power versus righties is 98, so it can't go up much more, but how is a 50 home run season with 131 home runs not enough to get you that extra 1? That makes no sense. You should be 99 power versus righties for sure. Cy Young will be Freddie Peralta, you know, a player we had in our athletics franchise last year, and Spencer Strider. That is no surprise there. Hunter Green in second place, and then division rival Zach Gallen. Batting title goes to Brian Reynolds, and Rafael Murillo was the 3rd highest average in all of the NL. And then in the American League, 3 Orioles at the top. Oh my goodness. Santander, we didn't even talk about. 330 average with 40 home runs is nuts. The Orioles are insane. What? Okay. Reliever Tanner Scott and Devin Williams. Rookie of the Year, we already saw Omar Figueroa wins it for us. So the 3rd straight Rocky wins Rookie of the Year. That's just kind of the nature of a draft-only franchise. You end up with a lot of Rookie of the Years. We'll just say that, because there's no shortage of opportunities for rookies to play in this type of series. So we're just going to quickly go through these here for the Gold Gloves and the Silver Sluggers, unless we see one of our guys win one. But overall, I think a really solid year of development for the squad. And Nolan Jones there, former Rocky, winning the DH Silver Slugger. I don't know, he's playing DH for them. I guess his fielding itself isn't that bad, but I want to use that level of an arm if I were the Padres, but it looks like they're DHing him, which is, you know, their choice. So let's see if we can win any more. So how is Rafael Murillo not even in the top 3? I guess he just didn't drive in enough runs this year, be my guess. But there you have it. That is the awards for the season. It is now time to simulate through the postseason, and of course the Dodgers pick up another World Series win. Still, of course, reminding us who is the class of the NL West and who is the team that will eventually have to beat. The Rockies will have 3 retirements here, with a pitcher and a couple of center fielders for us. So I'll have to replace those players. No 2027 Hall of Fame inductees. So we have to replace 2 coaches here. We have 4 decisions to make with free agents. Let's get into it. for a hitting coach, David Cortez, absolutely the best candidate by far. You lose 3 bunting, but who cares? You get +3 clutch and power and +2 plate discipline. I feel like he was our coach before. I want to see. We have a 3, a 3, a 2, and a 2. So if we can get these guys for 4, just to not have too many people coming at the same time, do something like this. That should be full bars. There you go for David Cortez. And now for a pitching coach, I think you want home runs per 9 here. Is something that we'll be looking at. It's only not minus home runs per 9. Don't want to lose 3 pitching clutch, but that would be nice. What about, okay, I like Boyce Jimenez here. +1 clutch, velocity is okay, strikeouts per 9, but +2 home runs per 9. That is no negatives. I'll take this as an option here. Just below full, but I think it could still be enough to get him. So there you have it. There are our coaching offers. We'll see if we can land them. Now it's time to talk about the exclusive free agents. Kopech wasn't very good stats-wise, but his progression I actually really like this year. Enough to the point that I think I want to offer him to come back for 1 year for us. He wants 6.2. Wants to play for a contender. Dude, you're not going to play it for a contender. You're going to sit on the bench for a contender. About $7 million for next season. We'll see if he accepts that. Eric Lauer, I think we're good on this. We're good with Lauer. I think we'll let him walk. Chavis had a really good start to the year, but kind of faded down the stretch for us. Ended up being an average offensive player. I still like him just with that position versatility, so I want to offer him a 1-year deal. Just give him a one that he'll likely accept here, $3.6 million. Kevin Newman, he's hit really well for us with an OPS above 800. He's been playing against lefties only, and it's helped us out so far. I think we'll make him. This is probably the last year we try to sign him back, but man, he wants $6 million at age 34. Maybe not. I think he's trying to turn that really good season into one more big contract. But I mean, there's not really anything that we need to do with the money this year, so screw it. I'll give him 1 year, $6 million. Don't love paying that to a 34-year-old, but again, this isn't. There will come a time when money will be tight. This season isn't it. I don't plan on making any massive offers this year either. So we're going to try to bring back Chavis, Newman, and Kopech, and we'll let Lauer test. Last day of the period, we did get 1 signing, so Chavis has returned. Kopech and Newman will take these offers to free agency, and both of the staff members accepted, so we're ready to kick off the offseason. A few days into free agency here, we have done everything in terms of arbitration and tender contracts. There's a few guys yet to sign here, but they will. And then we got a couple guys who might wait it out until arbitration. But I imagine at least Andrew Moore should accept that at some point. Smeltzer, we might get all the way to arbitration on though. And after all that, here's where the roster stands. We need 1 more starter and 3 more relievers that we can get in the Rule 5 draft this year. Did not hand out any contracts beyond 1 year. Just didn't really feel the need to do that with anybody. I mean, Jose Barreto could be a candidate for that once he actually is eligible for the multi-year contracts. Of course, needs MLB experience before we do that. And I'm also unsure as to whether we'll commit that to him just because of how tough it's going to be to pitch in Coors. I think I'm going to want a larger sample size before I commit long-term to any pitcher, even one the caliber of Jose Barreto. So that wraps up the signing portion. Let's get to the lottery and the Rule 5 draft. See what big free agents sign along the way. Sandy Alcantara to the Angels on a 5-year, $113 million deal at the age of 32. Shane McClanahan, 94 overall, 30-year-old pitcher, to a 9-year deal with the Mets. Massive deal for them. Alek Manoah, 90 overall starting pitcher. So a lot of the pitchers coming off the board. This one too, the Braves on a 6-year deal. Geraldo Perdomo, first big-time position player. He is headed to the Nationals. And then Adley Rutschman, no longer on the Orioles. He is headed to Kansas City. Big-time trade here. Anthony Santander to the Guardians. So the Orioles losing both Rutschman and Santander after last season. Bit rough, honestly. Getting them for a closer? That seems rough. I mean, he is 33 years old, though. It's time for the draft lottery. Here we have the number 6 odds, 7.5% chance at number 1. What will the Rockies do? We get one final top 5 pick. I'm going to officially guess that we'll pick 7. Oh, we picked 3. Let's go. Thought we would drop one. -5 for both the Giants and the Mets is rough. Nationals land the top spot. The Athletics also dropping 4. The Cubs had the biggest jump at 5 spots, and then the Rays, and then us, and then the Nationals, who were really tied for first, even though they're technically the 3rd spot, 16.5 for each of the top 3. So there you have it. Picking number 3 in the draft, ladies and gentlemen, Yohan Duran to the Rangers. And now it is time for us to take some players in the Rule 5 draft. So let's simulate to us. We do get a couple of pitchers off the board. Mason Barnett would have been solid. And then Hayden Younger also would have been a solid option. Let's see what we've got available for our pick. So we have a really solid right fielder. That's not what we're looking for, though. We need a pitcher for next year. Caleb Killian looks pretty well rounded. His hits per nine is in the 50s. Everything else is at least in the 60s. Sinker, cutter, 4-seam curve. There. Not a good strikeout pitcher, but really good break from Bryce Elder here. Let's see. Nobody really standing out ratings-wise. I mean, Ronnie Enriquez throws hard, can strike some people out. Terrible walks and home runs per 9, though, so I don't know if that's the best fit. Also doesn't have great stamina. Excellent break here from Alexi, another strikeout guy. And nobody who's super, and there's not like a good walks per 9 guy. I guess, you know, Bryce Elder would fit that mold. Last played in Atlanta, had a pretty solid season. I think we're going to take Bryce Elder here to add to the rotation. 1-year stopgap pitcher. Now let's add to the bullpen here. Dennis Santana. We had him, and he was awful the last time we had him, but it's a couple years down the road. He's developed a little bit more. Let's try one more time with Dennis Santana. If it doesn't work, then we know it doesn't work. A very intriguing player, to say the least. And we have Diego Castillo here, 99 break, good hits per 9. I think we'll take that as well. Yeah, he's 34 years old, but we're not asking him to be on the team forever, just next year. And then we got really good home runs per 9 limiter here in Cody Hewer. 4-seam slider, changeup. Yeah, why not? Let's try a Cody Hewer. So that will be it for the Rule 5 draft here in the 2028 offseason. And that will pretty much wrap up what we have for the offseason in general. We can just try to sign these guys back before arbitration. If we can, we're going to do that real quick. Just offer them all 1-year deals that they'll likely accept. We have the money this year. Didn't sign anybody to a big old contract by any means. So we'll do this. Hopefully they'll all sign. If not, we'll get them back on Arbitration nonetheless. William Contreras goes to the Guardians on a 6-year, $100 million deal. Still, so far, no big acquisitions in the division, which I like. Logan Gilbert to the Orioles on a 6-year deal. Finally, they add a bit. And then here you go. I had to say something. The Dodgers do make a deal for an 85 overall Dean Kremer. Camilo Doval, closer to the Astros on 6-year deal. Nick Lodolo, 90 overall, 30 years old, 5-year deal to the Cubs. Reed Detmers to the Red Sox, still just 28 years of age. 5-year deal for him. Yohan Oviedo, starting pitcher to the Phillies on 5-year deal. Bryson Stott, second baseman to the Blue Jays for 5 years. Brandon Marsh, 30 years old, 89 overall, to the Braves, 5-year deal. We're seeing a lot of 5- and 6-year deals here in the offseason. And then Stephen Kwan to the Orioles, 5 years, 60. And that will wrap up the offseason here for the squad. And we'll be ready for spring training. I think it's time to give Jose Barreto a shot. In spring training, it's time to give Clemente Herrera a shot in spring training as well. So we'll get to see a couple of exciting tryouts in our spring training episode, live stream, I should say, which will be coming out the day after this. So it should be coming out Thursday. Now, I will have to do it a little bit later, so probably closer to like 9 p.m. Eastern. So watch out for that. We'll do some spring training if I have the time. Again, I have to do it later, so it might just so happen that I can't do it at all until Friday. So either Thursday night or maybe Friday during the day. One of those days works out, one of those times works out better for you. Let me know in the comments and I can maybe change my schedule accordingly. But that will wrap up here. All I've got for the off-season episode. Why is that only on a small screen? I'll figure that out before the next time. But thanks for watching, and I'll see ya in the next one. Go Rockies.